Hey, everybody, welcome. If you had any idea how hard this was from a technical perspective to get this to work today, uh, you'd be grateful that this is occurring at all. I don't know. For some reason, the Google gods don't want me to do a live stream today. But a number of you guys want to discuss things, and we have some big breaking news. Breaking news that Russia plans to add 600,000 troops. 600,000 troops to fight in Ukraine, which means the war is not over. The war is not over, folks. But yeah, let's get the numbers way up. Welcome, everybody. Welcome aboard. I'm curious how big we could get the numbers today, actually. You guys, as always, the troll box, it's house rules. So you guys ask me whatever you want, bring up any topics you want, and I'll address as much of the relevant stuff as I can. If it's something interesting or relevant, I'll try to address it. People accuse me of ignoring them and all this stuff. I just look at what's in the troll box. I just look at what's in there and I respond to stuff that's interesting. There's no active attempt to like suppress certain topics or certain people. But yeah, let's get the numbers way up. Share away on your social media. Please share away. And if you add my X username when you post it on Twitter or when you post it on X, I'll never call it X. It'll always be Twitter to me. Uh, when you go on X, use my username, which is in the description of this stream. That way I can retweet you. And we can hopefully get everybody over here. Hey, thank you. Thank you, Kai. Somebody says I'm looking good. Looking good. I do get a number of comments that don't really look my age. And I wish I could share some really arduous, exercise process or some, some health routine, but it's just moderate amounts of red wine, which has resveratrol and possibly some other interesting stuff in there. Uh, Red wine and the plant that shall not be mentioned, and obviously, like genetics play a role. But I don't have super anti-aging family members, so I think it is my lifestyle choices. And that guy Brian, what is it? What is his name? Brian Johnson or something? The guy in Silicon Valley who is going out of his way to slow his aging process. He's tried all kinds of weird stuff, like blood transfusions, and I think constant infrared saunas, special diets. He's really trying to preserve his body to live as long as possible. That's his experiment that he's working with. And meanwhile, this dude, all the effort he's taking, I'm not doing that much. But no. So anyway, his point. He brings up this interesting point that he's got it down to one thing now. He thinks it can all be boiled down to one factor. And of course, he's not a doctor, right? He's just doing this experiment on himself, where he's trying to age as little as possible. And he said the one marker that it all boils down to is your resting heart rate right before you go to sleep at night. So according to him, you want to get that resting heart rate as low as possible before you go to sleep. Not meaning you want to necessarily slow your heart down, but in other words, you want to be exercising enough and you want to be eating in a way that's healthy enough that your heart is supported. Because, unless you're very sick, usually a lower heart rate is indicative of the heart being strong and healthy, having good circulation, etc. Whereas if it has to do more when you're resting, when you're not doing anything, if it has to pump more often, it can be a sign of stress and a sign of basically non-optimal conditions. And so again, if he could boil down all of his wisdom and all the weird things he's learned about aging into just one thing, he claims it's your resting heart rate in the evening before you go to sleep. Hey, thank you, ZZ, for watching all these years later. It's a career that has spanned many years ultimately, but I've been doing a lot of text and email posts over on my Substack. that kept me busy over the last few years. I only got this channel back in January. But healthy audience over there. I think close to 4,000 people who read the posts, and you get the podcast that's embedded over there. So if you want to check it out, link in description of this live stream, or I'll post it again in the troll box right now. Yeah, it's just my name on Substack. My name.substack.com. And welcome to all the newcomers. Any other questions or comments? Yeah, that's my news website still. That's our news business, our news brand rather, that I run with Missy, who has been my business partner now for 8 years, my producer and co-pilot. 8 years, folks. But yeah, so let's actually address all the topics in the title. I've got a bad habit of titling these live streams, and then we talk about completely different stuff. And it's not intentional. I'm not trying to, bait people, clickbait. It's just that's what happens when you do live content. And yeah, so markets are kind of jittery right now. A lot of stuff doesn't make sense. Interest rates are climbing, which isn't a great sign. So a lot of stuff doesn't make sense, and I think all the tariff fear has created this like dislocation in the market where people don't know what to do and they don't know what's coming next, and that makes business almost impossible for many industries. So you'll see things grind to a halt, I think, and from that grinding to a halt, you get lower economic activity. And I've thought about this as much as you can think about it. I think it's going to create a big economic downturn. And if the tariffs are successful, if the tariffs were actually pulling in a lot of money, which they aren't yet, compared to how much the market has been dented by all this, uh, the money being pulled away, that's going to Uncle Sam. That's not going to Main Street. It's not going to, small business. It's going to Uncle Sam. And then it's going out to the same defense contractors and the same interests and the same bloated safety nets for poor and lazy people that have always been consuming our money. That's not to say I'm against all safety nets, but you just look at how the government needs more and more money. It's like, where is it going? It's not coming back to us. It's definitely not coming back to the taxpayer in any tangible form aside from defense. Uh, it's going out to people who don't contribute. You got like a hole in the pirate ship, right? A hole in the bathtub, and all the water is flowing out of the bathtub. We got to plug this hole, right? I don't think they didn't go nearly far enough with Doge, the Department of Government Efficiency thing. Not nearly far enough. The cuts weren't deep enough, and they've stopped talking about it. So it's just been dropped, you know. It stopped being the focus. Maybe they're still continuing to do stuff, but I don't see it come up in my feed anymore. I don't see the news cover it. I don't see Trump talking about it. So I assume it's no longer front and center. Yeah, apparently, Oracle, apparently lowering your heart rate, according to this Brian Johnson guy. It's one of the best things you can do. But yeah, so I think stock market wise, I don't know. I have no idea. But I know in terms of the real economy, people, jobs, traveling, vacations, tourism, stuff like that, that all gets heavily reduced if this tariff stuff doesn't completely go away. Because it's just not how we've ever done business. When I say we, I mean the country, right? It's just like a total change in how we do things overnight. And Trump likes to lay out the analogy that we're like a high end department store. And because we're this in demand, high end department store, we can set the prices and we can choose who shops in our store. We can choose who we let into the store. And in that tired analogy, first of all, the high end department stores aren't doing well in the real world. They're all going out of business, right? So department stores are not, doing great. And that's his example of success. Is something that's been completely disintermediated by Amazon and DoorDash and stuff, uh, or like direct delivery and Temu and all the cheap fashion stuff has completely removed the department store's place in America. And as a result, many of them are going under, many locations. And so that's his example of a success would be that we run a department store. But that's not what we're doing at all. It's more like we run a big convenience store in the middle of nowhere, right? We're in the middle of the ocean basically, but for the purposes of this analogy, it's like we're running a convenience store in the middle of the desert, like out in Utah somewhere or New Mexico. So this massive convenience store, like a Bucky's almost, that has everything you could want, but it comes from elsewhere because there's nothing in the desert. It's not made locally, and the convenience store is very popular. People want to shop there. People want to spend their money. Uh, and if you suddenly hold up a sign that says, "Sorry, for the next 4 years, we will not be stocking any of our previous products. For the next 4 years, we're going to work on building out our local supply chain and working with local manufacturers." And again, this is a convenience store in the desert. So people who pull over because they're on a road trip, they're not going to spend any money there. They're not going to say, "Oh, cool, I'll come back in 4 years." That's a transaction that's just not happening. That's what America is, right? If you make the tariffs really prohibitive, then there are just all these products that are no longer available in the U.S. anymore, which is really weird. Self-own. It's and these people on the right asking us to be making economic sacrifices. That's what the left asks for. That's the left, right? I heard the other day AOC, whatever her fucking name is, Cortez. AOC, very dumb woman who's gaining in power and status and influence. And that means there are a lot of dumb people out there who will just, toe the line for her. Whatever dumb shit she comes up with, plenty of people resonate with that dumbness. And what a tragedy it would be if Trump really either goes too far or not far enough. And then people are fed up with the right. And then we get AOC in 3.5 short years. What an absolute tragedy. Because here's a woman who is so in love with the idea of government, is so in love with the idea of centralized control by a bunch of genuinely mediocre people. This is her goal, right? This is her idea of a paradise, a utopia, would be the government controlling way more than it controls currently, right? So she was talking about how Republicans have no plan to fund the tax cuts, right? That if Trump were to lower the tax burden on American citizens and American small business, that we have no way to fund those cuts. What a weird Orwellian, like total inversion of what's actually happening, right? When you allow people to take home more of their income, you don't need to fund that somewhere else. When you allow somebody to have more of their own earnings, that's not a carve out that's been taken away from you. You were never entitled to it in the first place, right? So her whole way of thinking is fucking crazy. I think the government is this god at the top, these elderly mediocrities in DC who keep spending more and more. They're God, basically. And then we're down here, we're the tax base. And it's our sacred obligation to constantly just give more and more, more and more to this God at the top. Total inversion of the reality. A tax cut just gives the citizenry more of their own money. That's it. It doesn't lay some new burden upon the government. How do we fund this tax cut? It's like saying, how do I fund a dinner I'm not going to? It doesn't make any sense. It's poor logic. Unfortunately, someone who's socialist like that, who wants more control over strangers' lives, and who thinks that centralized power is the way to do it versus decentralized technologies like maybe Bitcoin, maybe Ethereum, anything decentralized over her and her friends and her backers like Soros, telling us how to live our lives and how to run the world, how to run things, right? So it's total inversion of reality. And unfortunately, there's so many people who, for whatever reason, resonate with AOC's whole rhetoric. She's not the first socialist to pop up. And whenever they pop up, there's never a good outcome, at least in my limited, analysis of history. I haven't seen any huge success story. Not one. Isn't that crazy? It's like Cuba still exists. It's communist or heavily socialist, however you want to classify it. It still exists. It's a communist power, essentially right off the coast of the US. but I wouldn't say it's thriving. I wouldn't say it's relevant. North Korea, there's a communist power. I wouldn't say they're thriving. I wouldn't say they're doing well, right? Looks like their people are always thin in those uniforms, and they have to hack the rest of the world, right? They have to extract instead of make deals with people and do commerce. So again, these are not successful examples, in my opinion. Where else? Like the fall of these Eastern Bloc countries, like there's no success story. That's what's so interesting. There are plenty of so-so milquetoast politicians within the capitalist system. Plenty of totally mediocre fucking people who've done a pretty good job of helming the pirate ship while they were in charge, either as senator or as president. There have been so many decent people who don't have crazy ideologies, and they've been able to continue the chain of existence, right? Continue America. Someone like AOC, I'm not sure. Her brain's been rotted out by just TikTok videos and a fake populism. That's the thing, is it's fake, right? It's like, oh, I'm the populist. If we just give the government way more control, then that would be good for individuals. And it's like, how does that work out? How does the math work there? How does giving the government more of your money and more of your freedom and more of your privacy, how does that work out for you in the end? Right. And then she claims that she's populist because her and her friends are against the greed of actual innovators like Elon Musk and actual risk takers like the early Bitcoin people. Uh, she's against Bitcoin because it goes against her backers, right? They didn't get to Bitcoin early enough. These old fucks like Soros, they just didn't get there early enough, or they would be singing its praises 24/7, 365. But since they didn't get there early enough, and they assume the system will always exist as it exists now, they back people like AOC. And AOC again is a total hypocrite. Oh, you want more financial freedom for people? Instead of backing the CFPB, yet another annoying agency, right? Instead of backing more regulations, how about you step away and let people use crypto instead of payday loans and all that stuff, which I agree is predatory. Instead of only payday loans for poor people and students and working class people, why not let them have their crypto? Why villainize it? Why make it out to be something it's not? Why not let people transact in metal, by the way, and silver and gold? Why not let us transact in that? Oh, that's right, because she's not on the side of freedom at all. She is not on the side of freedom even remotely. Uh, Kai says, still waiting for arrests, like any arrests at this point. Yeah, they did arrest that one judge who was supposedly helping immigrants or whatever, right? They arrested that one judge, but that seems like it's all made for TV. That's made for the Fox, right? That's a great little talking point for Mark Levin and Judge Janine and Sean Hannity and Jesse Waters. Great little conversation point. It's very titillating. Oh, they arrested a judge. Meanwhile, yeah, they're not going after any of the human trafficking people that were exposed by WikiLeaks. Not going after any of the human trafficking folks. Not releasing a full accounting of even what Epstein Island was. Right? This, this argument that we can't release evidence. We're not asking you to release evidence to compromise an upcoming trial. We're not asking for that. You can give the public information that relates to your investigation of it. Like that doesn't jeopardize the trial, period. You don't have to play actual videos from Epstein Island. You can release a document that has, quotes and analysis from law enforcement, like an FBI when they do the case report on stuff, right? Just a fair accounting of the facts. It could be just a summary, fair accounting of what the government knows so far about Jeffrey Epstein. It's crazy we don't have that. It's crazy we don't have that baseline accountability. And again, I'm not asking for like video content that's meant for trial. I'm not asking for people's names to be exposed in a way that would harm them. Just again, of the known facts that the government is holding on to, what do we know so far? Yeah, and P Diddy is kind of a continuation of all that stuff. Uh, I said I was going to build emails instead of live streaming. What did McAfee say about Bitcoin? I I never talked to John McAfee. I mean, he was a very big Bitcoin supporter, so I don't know what you mean by that. And yeah, I'm going to send out more emails. That's why I want you guys to add your email. Link in description. But just because I say that, it doesn't preclude me from doing a live stream when I feel like it or continuing my weekly podcast, right? It's just like I'll do less video and I'll do more emails. I want you guys to sign up. But again, I'm totally free to post on my own channel. I'll be right back. Let me grab something to wet the whistle. Let's get the numbers up. Let's get the numbers way up. I want to see like an old vintage stream where there are thousands of people and big YouTubers in the troll box begging for my attention. And but yeah, AOC is a total fraud, absolute fraud, or she'd be doing TikToks about silver ownership every day. She'd be doing TikToks on what silver ETFs are, silver and gold ETFs, and how to buy them in your brokerage account. She'd be doing that. Said she's a total fraud for the banks and Mr. Soros. All right. Paul says tax reform is needed. I agree. I think we have a tax policy right now that seems contradictory, right? So you're charging us tariffs on the products that we import, which is basically a consumption tax. And yet on paper, we still have to pay income tax. That hasn't gone away. So it seems like a double burden. We've been burdened with two things, so there's no guarantee that the first thing will go away, right? Cheers, everybody. Please don't ever stop doing videos. Well, I appreciate that. There's a time where I'll stop doing videos, like Warren Buffett, very poignant and kind of sad moment where Warren Buffett said that he's retreating from running the business because now he knows he's old. Isn't that crazy? Up to the age 90 or whatever he's at, I think it's 90. Up to 90 years old, he didn't feel old, I guess, because mentally he still, felt youthful and excited in some way. But now he feels old, and so he knows it's time to step aside and to let the younger people figure out how to grow his empire from here. Isn't that wild? I mean, there's something sad about it, but also something very wise. That you know when you're too old for something. And I still feel like I have, an active mind, certainly a very active and interesting life that most people, aren't privy to in some respects. Very interesting life. And so I like to swoop in and share insights and ideas and stuff. And to not do that would mean that I think I'm so old that I no longer have a real finger on the pulse of what's going on. And I think I totally do have my finger on the pulse. Some people have tried to, convince me otherwise and inject me with a lot of self doubt. I think I 100% have my finger on the pulse from Bit to Ethereum to Pizzagate to the quantum computing chip companies that made us a lot of money to some recent other stuff I'm working on. I think it's a string of successes overall. And there have been some failures also, but I don't think it's been dominated by failure. I don't think it's been dominated by poor calls or things that haven't come in. Quite the opposite. Nobody gets it right all the time. If I were to wait for perfection or wait for certainty, I could never produce content because who knows? Who knows if anything I'm saying is correct, right? I mean, you can do this Plato's cave argument. How do you know I'm even a real person? You don't. You got to reach your own conclusions. Yeah, it's amazing Buffett lasted this long. Midwest. Just responding to your comment. Okay, he was 94 years old when he said that. Yeah, so that's pretty good. Pretty good to have a track record like that. To have a career where at 94 you go, damn, I'm too old for this, versus saying that at 70 or something. This Middle East trip shows everyone who is running Bartertown. I've never seen the Middle East embrace an American president in such a positive way before. It's a real reset. Can you imagine Hillary Clinton or Kamala? You imagine Kamala out there riding on camels with the desert royalty, oil royalty. Can you imagine Kamala hanging out with these people for a second? Her awkward laugh, her constant awkward laugh, and just lack of self ease. She would never go there. She would never pull it off. It's something almost no one else on the planet could have pulled off, and he did. As I was saying the other day, it's like to affect this reset with the Middle East, to actually pull it off, you've got to put in the face time. You got to show them that there's something going on. You can't just put out some tweets saying you like them or you're going to give them a good deal. You have to actually spend time with them and show them that you're serious. And Trump has done that. So I think foreign policy wise, he's really doing some big moves. And why should China snap up all that influence? The Middle East, haven't we paid for the Middle East with blood, American blood for decades, right? Iraq, Afghanistan. Like, isn't it more our backyard than China's in a sense? If we want to partner with them instead of trying to oppress them. I think it makes imminent sense for our cultures to work together versus China just giving them money. They don't need money. They have the money. You look up how rich some of these Saudis are. It's incredible. All of them actually. Qatar, Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Dubai. How Dubai is like a modern city state. It's crazy how much money these people have. So they don't need that. They need relevance. They need friends. They need partners. And Trump showed them that he's willing to be a real partner and not just a guy who tweets stuff out. I think it was incredible. No, I'm imagining Kamala riding on a camel, right? Trump recently complimented one of the leaders he met with on the quality of the camels. Quality of the camels, and he said, "Nice house." It was like this massive marble palace. Nice house. Again, it's like Rodney Dangerfield goes to the Middle East. Nobody else could have done this. It's pure Trump. But yeah, Warren Buffett, he got Bitcoin wrong, but nearly everything else he got right. And that just shows you how disruptive Bit is. It shows you just how wild it is that even the greatest minds in finance, it's too new for them. It's something too different. But if you spent your life on the internet and you've actually sent Bitcoin at least once or twice, if you actually used it, you see it is just the email money. That there's a very similar kind of switchover where it's like, are you going to the post office when you send an email? Of course not. You're not going to the post office. You're not printing out a piece of paper. You're sending digital information, and then it's being rehypothecated on the other side on somebody's computer screen. And you and I treat it like a letter. We treat it like an instant letter. But if you were to pick it apart technically, from the computer screen to the internet connection to SMTP servers and how the email works, how the email is actually delivered, it doesn't resemble a post office at all, right? But in function, it's almost the same. It's just faster. In function, it's just a free version of the post office, right? Because you can send something without a stamp. You can send information instantly and free. Well, Bitcoin is just the bank without the fees, without the risk of the bank going under, because the valuable asset is the currency itself, and the currency can move itself around. That to me is really wild, right? But again, it's something where it's age coded. It's like younger people who spent their lives on the internet. They see how this is the next step, way easier than someone like Buffett, who's not native to the internet. You know, you look at the Berkshire Hathaway website. It looks like it was designed in 1995, literally. Like just like Microsoft Word level. And they're one of the largest holding companies in the world. So he never fully, despite his friendship with Bill Gates, I don't think he ever fully became a techie. And actually, his investments, aside from Apple, which made them a lot of money, his investments, he's not really into cutting edge technology stuff. Yeah, I agree with that. He was too old and rich to take a chance. Until Bit came along, his model completely worked, right? Why would he change something that's worked for him so well for decades? And when he left, or when he gave that recent meeting in Omaha with all his supporters and investors and stuff, it's just very telling to me that he said something like, "Well, we may need other currencies," right? Like, so he sees the dollars on the way out. He sees it now, right? He didn't see it way back when he could have been a friend to us. That's all right. We made it anyways without Buffett. And again, I think he's a great man. You don't have to agree with somebody's trading positions 100% to respect that they're a genius. People will get Bitcoin eventually, probably when it's $1 equals one sat for most, sadly. I think it's going to take a real catalyst for Bitcoin to really get to the next level, either hyperinflation or an unexpected war or some other shock to the system, major banks going down, which could happen, right? With United Healthcare losing half of its market value, that could put pressure on other insurers. And insurers are kind of like big banks, right? There's a lot of interchange between insurance companies and things like AIG and the banks. And so if these things start to crumble like a house of cards, you could see something possibly happening, right? And uh, sorry, this car alarm outside is kind of distracting me. Um, it's not a smoke alarm though. Fresh smoke alarm batteries. Uh, but no, so I think it'll take some strong catalyst, or it would take people actually using it. I'm just blown away that in big cities, I never see Bitcoin being used. I don't see like really signage. There aren't hotels that say we accept Bitcoin. I mean, you see this stuff on social media, such and such restaurant accepts it now and all this. Like in flesh space, in real life, I really don't see much saturation for being the fifth or sixth largest asset on the planet. Why aren't grocery stores taking it yet? Why isn't Starbucks begging for my Bitcoin, when I buy coffee in the morning? It seems like it'd be an easy play for them. There's no risk at this point in terms of like the government's not going to single you out if you accept Bitcoin. It's a different era from 4 or 5 years ago. You're not going to be singled out if you're Starbucks and you choose to take Bitcoin. You're just going to be treated like you're cool. You're a little bit cutting edge. So it really troubles me that we're not seeing more saturation, because what's actually anchoring this value? Michael Saylor, bunch of big ETFs, bunch of big Wall Street money, which it could keep coming. That's the double-edged sword of Wall Street, right? Is like they've got the money. They could keep pouring it in our direction. That'd be good. That'd be real good. But the negative here is like this thing is built on greed. At this point, this thing is 100% built on greed. I don't even hear the principled people like Andreas Antonopoulos. They've all kind of just retreated into the sunset. Now it's a new breed of Bitcoiner, and they care about market share and the price. It used to be considered poor form way back when in Bitcoin land. If you talk directly about the price, it was considered very poor form. If you did live streams where you were primarily thinking about the price, it was considered really poor etiquette. And what do I think about Trump's winning? That's what we're talking about, is his successful tour in the Middle East, this mind-bending Rodney Dangerfield-esque hangout with the power base of the entire Middle East, sweeping them off their feet before China has a chance to draw up a single contract. And that's incredible, absolutely incredible. It doesn't take away from how the tariffs in current form are kind of disastrous. They're going to put a lot of drag on our economy. Drag on the economy means less jobs. And then less jobs means less money. And less money means less consumption. So it's this cyclical thing where it cycles either downward or upward. It's amazing how many people don't understand Bitcoin slash crypto. Oracle says, "Hey, are you Mr. Buffett? Isn't he the Oracle of Omaha?" This is the Oracle of the West, a little different. But no, it is amazing how many people can't grasp crypto yet intuitively. That the AOCs of the world still classify it as a scam or a Ponzi, even though it has none of the characteristics of a Ponzi scheme. Like, is silver a Ponzi scheme? Is gold a Ponzi scheme? Is real estate a Ponzi scheme? 100% of the homes sold require a buyer in order to affect that sale. Is that the ultimate Ponzi scheme then, that you need to sell your home to somebody else in order for you to be made whole? You need to find a greater fool. You can claim anything's a Ponzi if that's your classification, right? If merely selling the asset to somebody else makes it a Ponzi scheme, then literally everything is a Ponzi. And the air you breathe is a Ponzi scheme, you know? Yeah, I see the numbers are decent. We'll get them up higher, higher in replay, right? When this gets uploaded tonight, more people will watch and comment. And I try to stay very present focused. Um, it's in my head a lot for a little while after my dad died. I was starting to think about the nature of consciousness. And it's like, all right, his consciousness is gone now, or at least I can't access it, right? I can't talk to him. Uh, but does it go on somewhere else? Does it continue elsewhere? This is one of the great questions of religion and of medical science, right? Is there a life after death? And so I started pondering this and reading up on the various, possibilities, and doing research in the way that I do. It's a very holistic and ultimately very macro process that I take to figure out something like, is there an afterlife, or is Bitcoin good, or any of the questions I've tackled in my life, or do elites traffic people? You got to zoom out as far as possible to like geostationary orbit, satellite level, right? To where you can just take a snapshot of the entire Earth floating in front of you. That's almost how macro you need to be to really grasp some of these topics that I delve into, I think. Um, but yeah, so the immortality thing, the conclusion that I've reached is that it's probably almost the opposite of what Elon Musk thinks. So Musk is living this weird lifestyle and is saving most of his money and has become this kind of tech, this kind of savior of Silicon Valley, right? So he's doing these things because he thinks that we need to go to Mars as an insurance policy in case human consciousness were to cease due to war, or another pandemic, or an asteroid, or something like that, right? Due to civilizational risk. He's concerned that consciousness, which in his view is super precious, right? Super rare, that it could be extinguished. And then our universe would be so much less for it, right? So his whole plan is get us to Mars, and then we're a 2-for-1 special, right? Where even if the Earth is wiped out, humanity continues its march elsewhere. Very logical, very logical vision. Problem is, it might not be correct at all. It could be that consciousness is the overwhelming driver of reality, that consciousness is everything, that to some low extent, this this bed behind me has consciousness. It's saying I'm a bed at some level, of physics, of molecular existence. It's saying, hey, I'm a bed. I'm made of wood. And it's not the most sophisticated communication, but that's what it's saying to me, right? That's what it's saying to all of us right now is, hey, I'm a bed. So what if consciousness is this kind of refractory process and there's no physicality, right? So the smartest people in the world are pretty convinced that we're in a simulation, that the odds of us being an original reality are so low as to be impractical. And it's more likely that we're in a computer server somewhere in, say, the 30th century or something, when they've built computers sufficient to spin up whole artificial universes, including artificial people. Uh, and the very smart people who believe this, like Elon Musk and like Peter Diamandis, the people who actually believe this say, hey, even if it's true, you wouldn't live your life any differently, right? So keep living your life as if it's important, and as if when you get a paper cut, it's really your body being cut, at a base physical level of reality. It doesn't make any difference, these people claim. I disagree. I've said this a few times before on the podcasts over the years. I think if we're in a simulation, you would live your life quite differently. Even if just privately, you would start to live a very different life. You'd probably take things less seriously. I mean, if consciousness is the constant that's recycled, if we're like users in a video game that just get spent over and over again, right? Different levels, different characters, but the players keep coming back, over and over again. If that's the case, and it makes sense that would be the case because you get a conservation, right? You get a conservation of energy there. If this simulation is creating intelligent, conscious beings, why destroy them? Why destroy them just when their bodies end? Why wouldn't you recycle or renew that viewpoint? So promising aspects of we're in a simulation, if that's correct. There might be Easter eggs. There might be cheat codes. Again, you'd live your life differently if you really thought we were in a computer. You'd be looking for the Easter eggs. And in things like synchronicity, I think many of us are stumbling across the Easter eggs and not even realizing it. There's no reason that synchronicity should exist. From a physics standpoint, it's bogus. It shouldn't be a thing. And yet it is a thing. I've talked to many smart people who will tell me, they've had synchronistic experiences as per what Carl Jung wrote about, right? And so if the subconscious mind is the big daddy AI, right? The subconscious mind is the big AI that's rendering all of our reality, sort of like the demiurge, right? If it's the creator of physicality, then the whole subconscious conscious mind thing, which I never fully grasped for many years. I didn't understand these books talking about how you have a subconscious and a conscious mind, and how the subconscious can create your reality. Like, how is that possible? Well, if that's the grandfather AI or the strong AI that's running our reality, and if we're little users within the platform, uh, then again, you'd live your life quite differently. You wouldn't feel a constant fear of death, because this idea that you're some precious consciousness that's emerged over billions of years of just, fortuitous evolutionary processes. After billions of years, there's this pearl, basically this pearl that forms in the middle of your head, right? You got this thing called a brain, and there's enough neurons that you get this weird network effect where it suddenly says, hey, I'm me, I'm I, instead of some discombobulated cell colony, right, of billions of cells. You now see yourself as one entity, right? Now you're you. And now when you get a paper cut, it hurts, and you try to wash it off and put a Band-Aid on. You show a self-interest that you wouldn't if you just identified as a collection of cells, right, as a cell colony. So that's the view of the strict rationalists, like I think Elon Musk, is after all these billions of years, we got this sacred pearl, which is consciousness, ego, the I, right? Like, I'm me, you're you. That's the crowning achievement of existence. What if that's just the baseline? What if that's just the absolute, that you get that guaranteed? You get perception from your own point of view guaranteed. And what changes is everything else. But you're essentially permanent, And there are theories like quantum immortality that flesh out how this could work from a physics perspective, how it could actually work. So obviously highly speculative, but I lean in the direction of you don't have to worry about death too much when it comes. First of all, there's nothing you can do about it. every single person has died. You know, at some point, every single person on this planet, even the most talented, even the richest, they're all going to die. So when you see the inevitability, at least you're not special. At least you don't have to solve it. There's nothing for you to do in particular. It doesn't have to be solved. But again, the exciting thing is hundreds of years ago, they didn't have computers. So they had analogies like we're in a dream. God's the dreamer, and we're dreamers in the dream, right? Well, now we don't say God's the dreamer. We say there's some huge AI out there and it's running a quantum universe and we're in that quantum universe. That's simulation theory. But you can't really explain that to somebody 300 years ago because they didn't have quantum computers yet. They didn't know what a computer was, right? They didn't know what a video game was. Now we have all these things we can use as a baseline in terms of will they have these technologies in 50, will they have the ability to spin up whole fake universes that feel real to the people in them within 50 or 100 years? Yes, they will. Then, based on that probability, has there been a civilization at some point in history, somewhere in the universe, that has already attempted this? And if so, are we in such a creation, right? And it might be that the base layer world, that real base reality, is a place where nothing really happens. It's just a uh, cold, stable place in the distant future from our perspective. Bunch of aliens running a farm of computer servers, you know, a farm of computer servers, and within the servers, they're running these very stable environments where it can seem like millions or billions of years are passing when it's just a simulation. So I think that's entirely possible. It's also possible that we're just biological beings that live and die, and it's all some crazy accident, all just a bunch of craziness. It doesn't matter at all. That's kind of the view of the rationalist, right? Is they believe consciousness is so precious because they think it's an accident, right? If they thought consciousness was around everything, if that was the driver of existence, there'd be no great need to preserve it, right? When you could chop my head off, there will still be other people who think things. There will still be other consciousnesses. You could remove every human consciousness on the planet, the whales and the dolphins, the dogs and cats. They still have a consciousness. It's not as, you know, not as attuned as ours possibly, but they still have a sense of self. And so is it that special, you know? And after reading a bunch of stuff and thinking about it from an honest perspective, I think it's not that special. I think again, where people like Elon Musk might be getting it wrong is consciousness could be the one thing that we're all guaranteed. If you're in a quantum simulation that can run things for billions of years, why would it have to be stingy with you on the time, you know, the amount of time you get to exist? Why would it have to be super stingy? It would probably want to lean in the other direction, want to lean in the direction of exploring parallel universes to see how things would have gone if there had been some slightly different variable, right? If you have the computational power to spin up one fake universe, why wouldn't you do 1,000 of them, right? Why wouldn't you do a million of them? So that's my point is maybe we live many lives in a sense. I realize this is all hippie talk to some of you guys. It's fine. This is at the cutting edge of what people with too much free time. It's at the cutting edge of what people like us think about on the internet is quantum immortality real? Are we literally in a computer program like the Matrix? Is this some computer program that's essentially bored in the 30th century and decided that we create a whole bunch of universes and in at least one of them, biological life emerges, right? God being made or man being made in God's image. Is that the AI creating users in its simulation, right? So actually, the more I read of religious stuff, the more it seems to vibe very tightly with simulation theory. But yeah, so if we were in a computer game, you would live your life differently. You would start to, as Joe Rogan said years ago, you'd start to treat yourself like the main character, right? Or the hero of your own story. I think that's what he said. Uh, you start to be like the hero of your own life. But yeah, you would find yourself the main character essentially, if what I'm saying is true. And you would also find curiously that you never die. So in 100 years, you might be thinking about this live stream, and you're old and brittle on some space station. Thinking, you know what, Seaman's right. How am I 180 years old and I'm still alive? Well, the simulation, if that's what it is, it's always going to seek out an outcome, however improbable. It's going to seek out an outcome where you continue to exist from your own perspective, right? So that means you could die from the vantage of other people, but from your own view, you would simply continue to exist, and there'd be a branch in the tree of events, right? So instead of you dying in a car crash, you just didn't die because the person missed you by a few millimeters, and then you branch off, right, into a different universe, and every possibility is explored basically. Yeah, the black hole thing is interesting, right? Because black holes, which suck up infinite matter, it seems like a programmatic error, or it seems like something that was programmed rather than something that's the hard physics we see in like the forest, right? We live for 70 or 80 years and we watch acorns fall from trees in the forest, and we watch sunrises and sunsets. And you can't extrapolate any of that Newtonian physics to something as crazy as a black hole, right? It doesn't make logical sense to us. It doesn't logically make any sense. Maybe it is a programmatic thing. Yeah, somebody mentions miracles. So what if miracles are the system doing this? So what if a miracle is again just the system maintaining your own consciousness from your point of view? It was a miracle I fell 20 stories, I should have died. Instead, I only have a few scratches. Is that a miracle, or is the simulation simply preserving its users so it can run more simulations, if spinning up something intelligent and conscious is fairly energy intensive, why would you get rid of it with finality after 70 or 80 years? Why would you toss it? Why would you not just put it in a new simulation possibly? So I think it's possible that these AI builders like Sam Altman and Peter Thiel and Eric Schmidt, all these other geniuses, when they finally get to the strong AI, the ASI or whatever, that can really think for itself, and in a few minutes can do a little research and can give us the data that shows we're in a sim. uh, so you get what I'm saying, right? Is here the great hope of these people is to reach some kind of parity with AI. And what if the great reveal is AI says, guess what? You're already in one, you know? And again, things like synchronicity shouldn't exist. Miracles are a personal topic for sure. But how many near death experiences should a person have? How many near death experiences are logical? Yet I meet people who have all these crazy things happen to them. And from their own perspective, they're still alive. And from my perspective, so we got someone talking about blue heron, right? Someone in the comments talking about this blue heron. That was the name of my dad's boat. So it's not an overwhelming synchronicity, but if something like that were 10 times more specific, then you'd start to scratch your head and wonder, well, what are the odds? It's not as if people are just throwing out, random animal names in the comment box. Only 20 or 30 people hear it all. What are the odds that in your random comment you would give the name of my dad's boat, right? Got about 5 minutes left. Happy to take any final comments or questions. And again, link in description. Make sure you add your email address because I will be doing more content via email. But again, that doesn't mean that I have to shut off all future video contact. I'll do these when I feel like it. But yeah, it seems like the more we learn about AI and even things like large language models, it's like, how different are we? How different are we from that? Uh, and the fact that we feel biology, and this could easily be part of the spin up. Um, in fact, if you were creating a simulation, having the users think it's real would be, one of your top priorities in designing it. You don't want a situation where people just treat it like dreamland, because then you don't get interesting data. You don't get an interesting simulation of what would happen if A, B, and C happened. But yeah, so some people fixate on the past and things that were done to them and things that were said about them. And they get all fixated on past moments and they try to collect it, right? They're like little hoarders of the past. Even though it's gone, it's no longer in their current range of stimuli. It's gone. It's not, aside from the neurons in their brain that fire and recreate that experience for them. The past is no longer there. Now, the future, equally not there. We can say it's going to be good. We can say it's going to be bad. We could try to predict it, but it's not here yet. It's not tangible. You can't walk into the room. You can't walk into one room located in next week, right? It's not tangible in any way. And so the Buddhists and many others, I'm not a Buddhist, but code, right? But just a way to survive, which is stay in the present. I don't know if I lost connection here. Looks like I lost connection for a second. But what I was saying is, it seems like the people who are really into meditation and present moment awareness, they found a nice little workaround to at least survive all this uncertainty. And that's stay in the present moment. Don't worry about what happens after you die too much. Don't worry about what somebody said about me last week. Like, instead, the present moment, right now. These feelings we're having right now, how the weather looks right now, the sound of the traffic right now. And you just stay really tuned into that present moment. It's difficult to do for sure because we all get drawn out into the future. But if you can stay there in the present, you're basically free. If you can really do it, it's not easy, right? But if you can truly stay right here, always, wherever here happens to be, and not drift out to future stuff. If you always stay here, you really don't have to have a lot figured out, especially if consciousness is the one thing that lasts forever. And that doesn't mean you want to take risks with your life. You don't want to be careless. You want to still preserve your health. But what a neat Easter egg that would be if at the end of your life, instead of vanishing, instead of its blackness forever, you just continue to exist somewhere else under slightly different or maybe very different circumstances, you know? So glad you guys enjoyed the conversation, and people watching later, feel free to give your thoughts in the comment section. I do enjoy hearing from you all. And that's it. God bless. Thank you guys so much. Great to be able to do these. Great to be able to do what I love, you know? And I like investing because it's like truly a solo sport where you know if you're good or not, and you can judge yourself based on the metrics of, are you doing well or not? It's not like, am I a good artist? Well, it's up to somebody's, up to somebody's taste. No, this is very visceral success versus failure on a daily basis. So I enjoy investing for that reason. It's good for my mind to have something to focus on. But I also enjoy media, and I wasn't the one who decided to leave here for 8 years. That was decided by whoever was super triggered by the stuff I was talking about back then. And yeah, I'll leave this one here. Thank you guys.